we have two new compositions that are in this game. Greymane comp. Even comp. And odd comp. Greymane's champion. After you play an even tier card, give all other even tier minions 2/2. On the surface, you ask yourself, like, how competitive is this stat line going to be? We just went through, and I know people are popping in and out, but we just went through all of the tribes in the game. All of these tribes. And you look at a lot of them, and they just don't have that many stats. Beasts, really cool, good tempo board, great with Gift Horse, Dread Stomper, Gas Coiler. Goldrinn stuff's going to be a little weaker. This bird synergy could be really good if you get everything, but like it caps out, right? We're talking 20/20s a turn type of thing. This doesn't get absurdly big. It relies upon killing people quickly. It's going to be good. Overall, Beast will be a strong tribe, but they're not going to be doing disgusting things if given a lot of resources, right? Demons. Demons can be nasty. Fellblood, making ridiculous amounts of attack in the tavern. Other Fellblood doing health, along with Rylak potentially. Then consume effects on Picky Eater, Mind Muck, False Implicator, Fellbore, Fellbat. If you can make a tavern, that's 10 plus health. And Urzul, I should say, even as well. And then just start playing toward demons. You can make boards with a few hundred stats on minions, right? So we're going to, kind of quantify this. Your final boards as beasts are probably going to be a lot of high attack minions, not a ton of health. Maybe there's some Trigore stuff. Maybe there's some Goldrinn stuff if you get absolutely everything. But beasts ain't going to be getting big. I think the best board off of beast is going to be Dead Stomper stuff. Not because it makes the biggest peak board, but because like Dead Stomper early on with cards like Gift Horse, Gas Coiler, any of the Death Rattle, Reborns, all that kind of stuff. There's going to be a lot of power very quickly. Pushes people out of the lobby. Beast is going to go back to a more be strong now, hope everybody dies before I get weak type of play pattern. No more Banana Slammer, correct. No more Banana Slammer, no more Hawk Strider. And the reason this is important is because when we start talking about piecing together menagerie stuff, which is basically the new Theatar, we have to gauge how quickly these boards are coming together and how big they get in the long run. Because if you're going to play something that's somewhat weak early on, you better get bigger than the big boards. You don't want to be weak now and kind of big later. It's either be really strong now and then play to kill people, or be the biggest board at the end and take the risk of dying. Demons kind of has that line of be the biggest board. Rylak, Fellblood type stuff, consume effects, going to be very strong. Blood Gems, same idea. It's only really Rylak that will make Quillbore good. Rylak plus Moonbacon. You got the new Pokey dude, but he's real fucking slow. His name's Pokey after all. And then all of the normal Blood Gem stuff. Unfortunately, Lubber line is pretty much gutted because there is no more Paint Smudger. So you don't get the free Blood Gems when you play spells. But sure, you can still go like Pseudo Infinite off of Landlubber and then just bank on Rylak stuff with like Geomancer or whatever to generate a bunch of gems. And Gem Smuggler is a ton of gems at the later portion of the game. I don't buy the power curve for this. Weak early, not that strong later is not a great option. Mechs, I would not be surprised to see this be very successful in non-beast lobbies, because when everybody's big stat boards and you can play toward like Fellblood for attack scaling, and then Deflecto bots plus big mechs and magnetics in the tavern, you're going to be really rude to boards that are just like, I have big bodies. Scaling in mechs has never really been better. Beatboxer meme comp still exists, but let's be real here. Once in a blue moon, not the normal behavior. Dragons. Dragons is actually somewhat interesting because they do build a lot of stats in the middle of the game off of Persistent Poet, but it is heavily tied to getting exactly this card. Your adjacent minions keeping the in combat effects adds a ton of stats gradually over time. But gradually over time. And if you don't find this card early, you're not going to pivot back into this. Kali stuff can still be really good if you get to Bran early in the game. But think about the timeline we're talking about here. You need this 4-star real quick. You need this 4-star real quick. if you're ever going to make use of those boards. Are we really going to be tripling in the 4s? Probably not. So the first turn that you're up on 4, you need to be able to find this. Because that's the timeline where you're basically saying, do I reach with my triple to take a 6-star? And if the game turns into everybody reaching for a 6-star, what are the corners that you can turn from that position? You can take big ass tempo thing and then play the game on 5. You can take big ass tempo thing and play the game on 5. Or you can take scaling like Calicos, scaling like Rock, or scaling like, there you are, like Greymane. This is going to be so freaking good. This is like the best scaling line that exists in the game. Compare this to Calicos, this to Rock. I'm going to triple for 3s and then play for demons and Ellies. Yeah, some games. I think the infinite line off of recycling rate is really strong. We need that one's a tough one to have a conversation on. But I think the Ellie's infinite line and the Shell Elemental boards are going to be very good, depending on the heroes that support them. Are Greymane and Moon Eater going to work with Spellcraft? Spellcraft spells do not have a tavern tier. Coins do not have a tavern tier. There are some tavern spells that have tavern tiers. There are generated cards that have tavern tiers, like Droplet from Celemental is a 1-star. But like Coomer spell or whatever, Vengeful Slitherer spell is not a tiered spell. Undead are going to do undead things. The one and only line I see working here is Nightbane, or I suppose the full Kel'Thuzad Moros line. Nightbane getting scaling and being able to play with a lot of attack. You go a noob, you go Nightbane, you go, Nerubian. You look for a lot of bodies, and then Nightbane gets to litter the board with a bunch of attack as well. Can be really good. Hateful Hag, whatnot as well. A noob attack scaling, Primus early in the game, can be okay, but it does kind of fall over to a lot of stuff. Hateful Hag Leroy, is that an undead comp though? Regardless, 2 minions for 2 slots on the board can be fine. You can get a Leroy value, but you're spending 2 spots to kill 2 spots. You got to have a composition around it. Is there a site where you can view all the minions similar to how you're viewing them, or did you make this wonderful piece of art? The art is actually in Discord. So like, if you take the Discord link below the stream or ! Discord, all you have to do is click the little like, I agree to not be a dick to other people, check mark. The piece of document is there. There are a couple typos. Notice the 2 like gaps in the thing. I forgot to delete a couple cards and I forgot to add these 3. But pretty much everything else is there, and I'm going to update it tonight with all the things we figured out from stream. Regardless, undead scaling, never really that competitive, right? Outside of Moros Kel'Thuzad stuff, which I think will be very strong if you get an early Kel'Thuzad. It's going to be a tempo board. Naga could be very big. Might be the biggest board in this meta. We got Coomers and we got Shell Elemental. Shell Elemental over here is just silly with the right setup. But a lot of time it's going to be hard bait if you don't have the right setup for it. Gain's probably a little bit too slow, but hey, all of the stuff for gains still exists in the game. Double end of turn effects, all of the spells that exist. Gain's still there. You hit it early, you can snowball games with it. Murlocs is going to do Murloc things just less efficiently than in this meta, and Pirates is going to do Pirate things less efficiently than this meta. Murlocs heavily relies upon quests to enable playing the tribe. Pirates relied upon Greta to get to Infinite. Both of them can still get to that state, but they're a lot slower. Why we go through all of those at once is because now we're going to start talking about, like, if you're playing Greymane's champion and you get like a triple into 6 on turn 7, can we get big enough to be relevant off of this? And I think if you're just playing generic minions, the answer is no. You play Greymane, you play 5 minions in a cycle spot. You go, all right, well, I guess we start with that analysis. Hi, I'm Greymane. I'm going to take premium tier 6 stars. Well, Tethys sure seems pretty good, right? Key cyclable cards. You're a pretty good cyclable card. You're pretty good as a key minion. Like this kind of combo. Bran. Yeah, Bran is interesting. Let's think about Bran for a second. I'm going to bring Bran down here. Bran's not even. Bran does not naturally work because this card, remember, is giving other even tier minions 2/2s. We're talking a lot of core minions here that are very, very, very cyclable. Murlocs, if you have Murlocs. Elementals, if you have Elementals. We're just going to start gathering up some of this shit. This makes sense. This makes sense. This makes sense. Same logic as Bran. I think just Recycling Wraith ends up being so much better than Bran in 90% of the spots. And you can't run Bran and Recycling Wraith and another minion that doesn't scale and start playing even stuff. You're really good, even though you're an odd minion, but we'll get to that in a second. Shell Collector, obviously. Reaper, yeah, okay. You know, there's a whole nother row. We'll get there in a second. I can only do so much at a time. Kali, we're not going to have enough dragons. Hate Spawn doesn't seem very useful. Drakaseth, fine, but like just because you could potentially have Bran. Murrow also would potentially Bran. Shelly being a buff is a 2-star buff to the even comp. It is, which is kind of interesting. Cycling odds doesn't seem good. We'll get to that in a second. This is why I think this conversation is really interesting, because until you start putting all the cards side by side, it seems on the surface that it would be really good. Rylek situationally useful. It feels like we have, let me just put this over here, what are effectively the core. We have Greymane's Champion. Reminder once again, after you play an even tier card, doesn't say minion, card, after, or give your other even tier minions 2/2. Any of these kind of cards existing on the board, I guess we should probably put you as a potential category here. Any of these kind of minions on the board, generally speaking, are going to be useful effects. Divine Shield, Cleave, lots of attack. Sindora mechanic, double health. Rylek with the right setup of a board. You could just keep the battle cries and play it with Bran or whatever. We'll just pull you over in the other category because honestly, these are really just enablers. Very specific type composition stuff. The guys over here. And all of these cards make a lot of sense because we have all the flexibility in the world, right? We can play this minion, Greymane, preferably more than one Greymane. And then you're probably going to want 3-ish core minions on the board. Things that are good effects. Cleave, Elemental Surprise. Cleave, Whirlotron for obvious reasons. Not only is this a premium minion, it also generates spells, which in turn scales your board or gives you effects, right? So this is just a nasty fucking card. Speaking of which, if that is the case, then you are also the case. Come on down, buddy. Salivas also makes a ton of sense. Because you can just use the card either to be on the board or cyclable. Maybe we'll throw it with the cycle group. To generate a spell that is then, you get the effect of the spell plus the trigger from Greymane. And then it's going to be a group of this kind of stuff. These are like catalysts. There are a lot of lines here that can use this kind of stuff to enable a grouping of this. So if you go like the Murloc line and you want Bran with it, along with Greymane, one cycle spot and maybe a pair on one of those guys, or maybe a second Primal Fin, another Greymane on the board, whatever it might be, you're just going to be able to cycle through over and over and over again and take all those minions that you're playing and build a tremendous amount of stats, right? Choose to play the line more toward Recycling Wraith. And the first thing you're definitely going to want is Recycling Wraith and then Landlubber. And then this line is going to go more toward the generate spells type of category. The problem with this is that you have to be high Tavern tier. And when you're playing a Greymane board and you have Recycling Wraith, Landlubber, and you're playing a high Tavern tier, you're not going to get a lot of spells that you can play each board. There's a huge difference between playing Landlubber on Tavern 3 and playing Landlubber on Tavern 4. Going 5-6 is just increasing the cost of the spells over and over and over again. I'm not sure how well this is overall going to work, but if you can somehow get a hold of this and stay low Tavern tier, or you can get like, the Recycling Wraith board. It's basically a better version of this board. Rock, Recycling Wraith, Greymane. Greymane just enables you to play better value than what Rock already allows you to do, right? Tethys can fill any of these boards. You're just like, you're sitting there going, well, this thing generates gold so that I can play even more cards, even more spells, even more elementals. Cycle day, or board after board after board. Question is, do you play something like a Bran, right? Because then we get into this kind of situation here, where this is your board. Every time you play a card, you're getting a ton of effects. You're getting elementals with free reroll, plus rock value, printing extra minions with Tethys, getting the 2/2 buff on all of the even minions. Oh, wait. These aren't even minions. How much gold are we generating? How many more things are we playing in a turn because we're playing these cards versus how many more stats could we take off of just having another even minion on the board, right? Like, this very quickly devolves into a conversation of one of these two guys is likely the only enabler you can afford on the board. Do you go the elemental line and you play something like this and increase the amount of value off of what you're playing? Do the math. Well, the question is, can you get to a place that's pseudo-infinite? Because if you can get to a place that's pseudo-infinite, it doesn't matter how much you're getting off of each individual buff. You can just keep playing cards, right? And if you can just keep playing cards and the Recycling Wraith line comes out so far ahead, it's ridiculous. You need like Golden Tethys plus Bran before this line starts looking better. This line's a lot quicker to get to a place where you generate Golden Recycling Wraith, you get Golden Landlubbers or whatever, because you're generating elementals and playing elementals as your role, and you just keep the pairs on the board. As soon as you find the second Greymane, that's going to want to occupy one of those two slots anyway, right? Moon Eater and Greymane feel like a joke idea, but might work like cards with Elemental. I think it's going to be the strongest composition in the game. Not even remotely close. Because it's the only thing that breaks the gold barrier. It's giving you a billion stats and allows you to greed toward the same cards. Even an odd at once? Oh no, you'd never do that. Like, Peggy's another starter card. The Murk-Eye whatever line could be a potentially really good line as well, because you just generate a handful of cards and play them and then use them with Bran or whatever. Really, I think Bran's the only really fits this board right here. It has to be like this package, or at least like these three, Bran, Murk-Eye, and Primalfin, that outvalue playing cards like you and you, that generate playing so many more minions to pair with this. You and like this little core right here can be really good, but Rock's ultimately unnecessary. Because you can just go you, and you, plus it's something generating gold, plus like one extra copy of you, and suddenly you don't really have the space for anything else, right? As soon as you see the pair on one of these guys, you're going to want them on the board instead of that anyway. Because at that point, you're just going to play toward all of them tripling. And once you start getting to Golden Recycling Wraith, Golden Tethys, whatever, the game spirals out of control. I'm not so convinced on base skill. You realize we're just talking about having Murloc package, right? It isn't, I need to have base skill at all moments. Because as soon as you start going toward Murk-Eye, Primalfin, Bran, plus play cards through, you're just going to gather up all the copies of them, generate a handful of cards, and then go scam comp. Because that's the way you're going to win. The final board is going to be Golden base skill, whatever, Bream or Belcher's in hand, Bream in hand, all that kind of stuff. It's not that you 100% need this from the moment. It's this package right here becomes your composition. This right here gives you scaling in the meantime, and then you just play Murlocs. Like when you get to this position, if you had the option of going the direction of all of the Murlocs or Greymanes along with this package, you're going the direction of the Murlocs. It makes no sense to play Greymane, right? But Greymane still fits on that board, and if you go this direction and you get this stuff going, you pick up the base skills and whatnot, you cycle for a bit, use this to be strong in the middle of the game, and then win the game off of full Murlocs. Because you're about to print all of the minions that just create the golden version of the composition. Greymane line, though, is just very quickly going to be, I have Greymane, I get the 6. I have Tethys, I have Recycling Wraith, I have Landlubber, like whatever this core is right here, and I'm just looking for triples. And as soon as you start getting pairs, you're going to ask yourself, you know, my board is this. I have these guys, and I'm buying cyclable cards. Let's put you back up here in the middle of nowhere. Right? I find a Elemental. This is my board. What happens when you find another Tethys? Like, the first thing that goes is you're just like, no, no more bowl. Tethys on the board, just scale for the pairs. How much are we really prioritizing getting premium effects like this instead of just getting to a state where it's going to generate so much gold that you're infinite? And the fact that you are using all of your resources to generate cards that are going to force you into an infinite state, and at the same time, you are buying discount minions to put 24/24 buffs on your board, or 20/20s, is just absurd. This buys you time and stability. This kind of stuff gives you the line to be infinite. And then once you get, gold and Tethys together, and you get gold and Greymane, then you just kind of pick up, Cleave plus Sendori or whatever at the end, and then cycle all the cards for it. Because now you're infinite, and you can just play everything for days, and you're done. Yeah, Landlubber may not make the cut in certain boards. You may be able to, do a 3 premium minions and do that. It's just one of those situations, like, it's way better Thorum because you don't have to do anything to enable it, and you're buying discount minions all the time. Other cards that make a ton of sense early are like Whirling Zap-O-Matic. I always want to put it on the left side because of the effect of the card. Is going to generate, it's going to be a Divine Shield minion, Wind Fury minion that generates cards that then in turn scale your board for all even spells, or you get big odd spells, right? Cards are going to be just flat out silly. You get, Divine Shield on the board, you keep that thing around. That's what's currently happening with elementals. It's possible to fit all of Bran, Wraith, Rock, Master, Sandstones and still have a cycle spot. Exactly. Like, this is exactly where the conversation's going, and why I think this is such an interesting one, is because all of these boards are effectively the same goal. You get to a point where you're generating positive gold per board. Once you get to that place, you have insurmountable resources. You're going to just snowball the lobby. That can happen off of this. It's much tougher. Or it can happen off of this kind of stuff. The Ellie's line, the Pirates line. Let's say we don't have Pirates in the game. Yeah, it's going to be a lot slower. But if we can get the Golden Recycling Wraith, and we can get to a couple minions here that are, in turn, generating a little bit of value. Shit, just put another Cleave on the board. Just a couple cards. It may not be infinite, but how many cards are you playing per turn? Golden Recycling Wraith. Cycle all of the elementals. Get 2 free rerolls for each elemental. Every time you find Tavern Tempest and Celemental, you're basically printing gold. Yep. You don't have Tethys. Maybe Bran makes the cut now. Now you're like, all right, well, I can't really use the extra spot here. Now I have Bran. That increases the gold per board a little bit. Now you're looking at Reef Explorer as a very good cyclable card. Tad becomes better. You don't have any real way of playing Primal Fin in this board, so like maybe in the case that you have Murlocs, the first time you see the Murkai, you're like, okay, well, now this one's good in the Murloc version of the board. You can see how it's adapting, right? You're not going to have 10 tribes in every game. As long as you have Ellie's in, this being the catalyst for the vast majority of the gold, this card is nuts. It's actually just silly because you're just getting everything that you want to buy anyways, littering your board with tons and tons and tons of stats. You got a lot of flexibility. It's Recycling Wraith, Greymane, preferably Tethys. I mean, you can do it off of Tethys, just an insurmountable amount of Tethys. It's the one line right now that feels like it's the outlier. That we talked about all of these tribes, and the reason why I kept going over it, just over and over and over and over again, is that everybody else is fair. They're all fair. This right here, this is fair. This is fair. A little bit less fair with Elemental. It's all just, you play 10 gold and you get a little bit of value. You play 10 gold, you get a little bit of value. You play 10 gold, you get a little bit of value. Turn after turn after turn after turn. Suddenly, Elementals is sitting over here going, I don't have to play fair. I used to rely on Rock, but now, best friend Rock terminated. My new best friend's Greymane over here. Now I can play every premium card in the game, scale the entire board in the process. That's it. This board's going to be nasty. whichever direction it ends up going, obviously these are not the final minions here, or not the premium minions, but depending on what you have tribes in the game, there's only gonna be 5 of them after all. As long as there's Ellies, like if you can get this core right here, this thing spirals out of control. You just start printing more gold turn after turn after turn. It's like Galliwix for every hero.